Greetings and blessings, whenever and wherever, my brothers and sisters in Christ, and fellow survivors of suicide, loss, and attempt. I am Brandy Johnson, ordained minister and fellow survivor of loss. I want to begin with thanking everybody who's tuning in, because doing new things like this takes a lot of courage. But it means a lot to have your support, whether or not you've been directly affected by suicide. Just knowing that these efforts are supported by a caring community makes a huge difference in continuing the fight to break the stigma and to openly talk about suicide. This is the last episode in our first season, which is a milestone because I started out trying to make an episode each week and have slacked off to once a month. But I did not give up, and neither should you. All of us go through things. Sometimes it seems like the hits just keep coming, and it might seem like we're on this road alone. But we are not alone. You are not alone, and I am not alone. So as a survivor, I hope that you know just how much this podcast is meant to leave an impact, and hopefully one that encourages you to keep going. I am thankful for everyone who has listened and shared with us. I hope that in some way you have been positively impacted, supported, encouraged, or educated by what you've heard. Suicide has a huge social impact that has been surrounded by stigma, and that stigma causes a negative impact. It reduces the progression that can be made in the fight to prevent and stop suicide. And sadly, I have a list of names, a list of those who have died by suicide. It is almost 600 names and growing. 600 lives, 600 memories from loved ones who have shared their names with me. And again, sadly, this list keeps growing. So I hope that this podcast empowers you to talk with someone and to have those conversations that can help someone decide to stay. Help keep their name off that list. Keep our names off the list. The list itself is much longer than the names that I have. And there would not be enough time to share all of these names. But the list of those affected and the list of survivors is even bigger. And every life on either of those lists matters. We matter. We matter to God. We matter to one another. We matter to our loved ones. And our loved ones matter to people who may not have ever even known them. And we matter to people we haven't even met yet. Everyone deserves to feel like they can talk about these things. So I hope you know there are others out there, survivors of many walks and roads, but others like us, others like you, and others like me. Together, we can be a voice for one another. We can be the voice for those gone too soon. And we can be a voice for those who are still struggling. Let our voice of love be louder than the voice of stigma. So since this is the 12th episode, it is an achievement. And I want to dedicate this today to my daughter Jaslyn, to my mother Joyce, and to all who have been lost to suicide, and to all who are still struggling. I will have a special announcement that I'll share later, but as we begin, I want to tell you to keep listening in, because in this special announcement, I will share with you a special interview from the Greater Kansas AFSP's Out of the Darkness Walk in 2023. So stick around, guys, towards the end. But this episode is also special because of its content. We are going to talk about veteran suicide. In May, we celebrated Memorial Day. And in July, we celebrated Independence Day. And with the idea of patriotism, we remember our soldiers and our heroes. We should also remember their mental health, because it is very important. And the truth is, however, many suffer from many mental health illnesses, and many veterans also die by suicide. My cousin, Amber of Kaylee's Dad is Mad, and I had an opportunity to attend the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Capital Day earlier this year in Topeka, Kansas, the state capital. And during our time there, my cousin arranged for us to speak with the House Rep, Pat Proctor. My cousin's been able to work shoulder to shoulder with him in the fight against the fentanyl crisis. And from what I gathered, Pat also takes soldier suicide seriously. Having served in the Army himself, he said that in 25 years, he never lost a soldier. But since then, he's lost 5 to soldier suicide. That was absolutely shocking for me to hear, you guys. And in the meantime, Pat does a lot for his veteran community. And I'll share a link in the description and comments, guys. If you're in the state of Kansas, near the Leavenworth area, give him your support as he supports and serves those who have served for our freedom. And we can also support and serve our nation's veterans, guys. They need our support in ways that we probably can't even imagine. And one of the ways we can support them is by helping to prevent soldier suicide. It's a very important mission that many organizations have begun to battle by providing research and education into what factors contribute to the increasing number of veterans lost to suicide. I have some facts here from StopSoldierSuicide.com. And I'm quoting much of this directly, you guys. One of the first facts is that 22 soldiers die by suicide every day. Veterans are at a 72% higher risk of suicide than those who have not served. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in veterans under age 45 and for post 9/11 veterans. The suicide rate of female veterans is double that for female non-veterans. Additionally, 1 in 3 female veterans report military sexual harassment or trauma. This contributes to the higher rate of suicide among female veterans. And more than 1 in 10 veterans have been diagnosed with a substance abuse disorder. And those are just a few quick facts at the tip of the iceberg. We know that suicide itself is complex, and soldier suicide is even more complex. For years, soldiers have suffered the ill effects of trauma and depression when coming home, but the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention says that no combat experience is necessary to be affected by mental health conditions. And more than half of military suicides involve soldiers who have never been deployed. Some of these illnesses include depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar, and again, substance use disorder. But for those who have been deployed, and even those who have just been stationed, when going back into what we would call a quote-unquote regular or normal civilian lifestyle, the transition experience can increase these chances. StopSoldierSuicide.com says that more than 40% of veterans experience high levels of difficulty when transitioning, and this means returning to civilian life, you guys. Studies show that those individuals are 5 times more likely to experience suicidal ideation. When asked if their transition experience was more difficult than expected, 48% of veterans agreed. When asked if their transition experience was stressful, 76% of veterans agreed. More than 80% of post 9/11 veterans say that the public does not understand the problems those who have served face in transitioning back to civilian life. More than 80% of civilian organizations have no veteran-specific recruiting programs, and more than 50% offer no onboarding or transition support to help veteran hires. So we're talking about, these employment organizations. There are many out there that focus on reintegrating felons. But what we're reading here is that more than 80% don't have a veteran-specific recruiting program. And more than 50% don't offer any help to support the veterans that they are hiring. So we definitely have a huge gap here in the employment sector for our veterans when returning to civilian life. More than 45% of veterans with combat experience describe transition as difficult, compared to 18% of veterans with no combat experience. So you can imagine there is a difference, when you've gone overseas or you've served in, one of the wars that have occurred and then you return back home. It's none of us can imagine it if we have not been through it. But of course, like AFSP said, no combat experience is necessary to suffer from a mental health illness, but we do see a huge difference in those with combat experience when returning home and transitioning back to civilian life. But about 35% of veterans say they have trouble paying their bills in their first few years after leaving the military. And it's just astounding that our nation's government is not giving them further financial support to make a smooth transition. You come home, you can't get a job, there's no programs tailored specifically for veterans who have learned skills and trades, veterans who are dedicated, who are honorable, who you would think, hey, this would be the employee that I would want. Somebody who stands up for what's right, keeps morals and values, follows directions. Veterans are very skilled, and it's very important that they have employment to return to, and or a way to be financially sustainable. So we can imagine veterans out there who are struggling financially. This is adding extra stress to whatever mental health issues they may already be experiencing, maybe feeling abandoned by their government, not in daily contact with their brothers and sisters in the military that they've grown relationships with. So many things that we can only imagine, again, if we have not experienced it. Just thinking about the situations that they may go through really brings to light how difficult it could be for them after serving their country selflessly. They need support when returning home or when returning from their station. But only about half of the NCOs and enlisted personnel agree that when asked if the military prepared them well for the transition to civilian status. So it sounds like the Army itself, or whatever part of military somebody may be joining, would need to further develop programs before discharging our veterans that would help to set them up for success when they return home. But veterans are affected by more than just what they experience while in service. Again, this post-service support is very crucial. It's a time when mental health disorders can develop or even worsen. Substance use disorder probably seems like the most common, and I want to talk about this a little bit because my own adoptive father was an alcoholic, and he wasn't your stumbling, mumbling, mean kind of drunk. He was extremely functional. However, he served stationed in Germany from 1960 to 1962 as a porter and a mechanic. And although he never saw the front lines, the transition home was very difficult, and it came with additional trauma. My dad told me that while he was stationed, he was sending money home to support his mother, but he was discharged to return home after his fiancée died in a house fire. So I can only assume that these are part of the moments of trauma that contributed to not only his alcoholism, but also his grief would have contributed to a poor mental health status and eventually developed into full-blown alcoholism. Dad told me he actually began drinking while he was in Germany. He used to tell me about the style of beer that they had. And later he told me, after returning home, of course, he had been arrested for walking drunk from Tennessee across the border, the state borderline, into a dry county in Kentucky. And I never knew my dad not to pull a beer out of his pocket while you were standing there talking to him. And very often I would have to throw away empty vodka bottles that were left hidden in different places around the house. But Dad was one of the lucky ones. He obtained a VA loan to buy a house when I was a kid. And he was otherwise a morally upstanding and a very intelligent man. He always went to work. He always provided for my mother and I, and he always supported us. And he taught me many, many little lessons in life. But besides his addictions and his vices, which it didn't seem to hinder him until it came to his health. And I remember one time my daddy said, and this is a true direct statement from my dad, he said, "Sissy," he said, "there ain't nothing wrong with smoking weed and drinking beer as long as you don't let it affect three things: your health, your income, and the way you treat your family." Woo! Get a little emotional on that one, guys, because Dad had wisdom. And even though he had problems, he did his best not to let those problems affect his family life, to affect the income, to affect the household. But I say that he was one of the lucky ones, because Dad could have ended up homeless. He could have been incarcerated. He could have ended up dead sooner after his outcome and after the service and transition. So I say it might have been better than the outcome for a lot of other veterans. But there's a large time gap between when my dad was discharged and 20 years later when I was born, of things that happened that I don't know about. Family, life, divorce, moving, getting remarried, many things my dad didn't tell me about. But from just a quick glance on the outside, we see that he overcame whatever struggle it was when he got home, to the point where he was able to raise a child who respects him. And I still love my father greatly for the wisdom that he gave me. But looking back now, I'm able to see how what happened to him in the service, what happened when he was discharged, later contributed to bladder cancer that developed from alcoholism, and eventually lung cancer, more than likely from smoking and or possibly chemicals he may have been exposed to throughout his lifetime and his style of work. Dad was always a mechanic, but rest his soul. Again, I say his outcome was not as bleak as it was for some of our other veterans in the end. But again, we still need to support and serve our veterans in many different ways. There are many organizations that we can always donate to, volunteer, or, share and give your support You can give money again, or you can give your time. You can give your own service. But you can also learn to watch for the warning signs. If you know a veteran especially, it's important to let our veterans know that it's okay to tell us what they're going through. We need to let them know that we want them to be able to talk to us, to know that they can open up and maybe share with us how we can help them by letting us know what's wrong. Let us know how we can serve them. But even if they're not able to say it, watching for the signs can help us know when to nudge those important conversations. I'm going to give us a list of facts here from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website, and we are going to start with the warning signs of a mental health need. So some of the things we can watch for would be like cleaning a souvenir weapon, visiting graveyards, probably more than what somebody would normally visit, obsession with news coverage of war or a military channel, wearing their uniform while off duty, being overprotective of children, standing guard of the house, obsessively locking doors and windows, stopping or hoarding medication, hoarding alcohol, defensive speech like saying you wouldn't understand, or avoiding eye contact. But these are just a few warning signs, and some of these things like being defensive, avoiding eye contact, stopping medication, hoarding alcohol, those seem like everyday symptoms and signs. Additionally, though, we just want to make sure that we are aware of all the signs and symptoms, because these are just a few of them, and some of them are specific to what our nation's veterans may need that signify, hey, we have to have mental health help and support. But there are also additional suicide warning signs outside of warning signs that say, hey, I need mental health help. We also have additional warning signs for suicide itself. So you can watch for these signs, which includes things that people might talk about, moods that might be displayed, or certain behaviors that signal risk. So in the suicide warning signs, in the category of talk, we can watch for if a person talks about directly killing themselves, possibly feeling hopeless, saying they have no reason to live, feeling like they're a burden on other people, feeling like they are trapped, or talking about being in, of course, unbearable pain. You can also watch for people who are considering suicide through their mood. They may display depression, anxiety, a loss of interest. They may be irritable. They may feel humiliation. You may be able to sense that they are agitated. They may be displaying an agitated mood. They may also display rage in their mood. So again, depression, anxiety, loss of interest, irritability, humiliation, agitation, or rage. Those are some mood symptoms to watch for when people may be considering suicide. And then, of course, behaviors that signal risk, especially if they're related to a painful event or a loss or a change. You may see an increased use of alcohol or drugs. They may be looking for a method or a way to kill themselves, such as like looking online or for materials or for means to die by suicide. They may begin to withdraw from activities. They will isolate from family and friends. They may sleep too much or too little. They may visit or call people to say goodbye. They may also begin giving away possessions. Again, you may be seeing the aggressive behavior displayed, or they may also display fatigue. So there are a lot of things to watch for. If we know a veteran who has displayed some of the signs of needing mental health help and then potentially being at higher risk for suicide. And it's really important, guys, that we remember to leave the light on for our veterans, whether they're coming home, they're already back home, or if they never left home. We go back to our basic train of thought. That is, we have to talk about these things. We have to share resources. We have to share the information. We need to know what to look for. We need to be prepared. We need to be ready. And we need to be on the lookout, even if someone just needs a little extra support, or someone to be nice to them, someone to recognize them, but someone to know that, hey, it's okay to talk to me. Let me know what's going on. Don't be ashamed. You're not a burden. I know the famous saying, Carpe diem, seize the day. Well, I'm going to counter that with a word I probably can't pronounce, but seize the awkward. Reach out and grab a hold of those difficult conversations. Carpe Inconcinnus. Seize the awkward, guys. Drag them out of the darkness. Shine some light on the issues that people may be experiencing. And let them know that they don't have to stay quiet about it. Shout it from the rooftop if you have to. Send up a smoke signal. Tie a letter to a dove. Let someone know that they don't have to hide what they're going through. And if you're going through something, please reach out to somebody. I have a list of resources, again, from the AFSP and the StopSoldiersSuicide.com website. And I will share these in the descriptions or the comments section so that you also have these resources and can share them with others. But there are many resources for veterans and for those who are concerned about a veteran so that you can reach out and also be able to get the support and the help that you need when trying to help support our veterans, or if you are a veteran looking for direct support. And of course, this includes the 988 Crisis Lifeline and the National Suicide Crisis Hotline. They both specifically have special options for military assistance. The Military and Veteran Crisis Lifeline, which is also the same number for the National Suicide Crisis Hotline, 1-800-273-TALK 8255. You press 1 for military and veterans. The same with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. When you dial 988, you press 1 for the military and veteran option. You can also chat with them at 988lifeline.org. There is also Vets for Warriors at 855-838-8255. And a special hotline for veterans in transition returning home, 1-800-424-7877, and that is part of pdhealth.mil. You can find their resources for in-transition veterans on their website. Again, I will be sharing this in the description so that you can find that resource and access it. But Military One Source also provides resources. That's militaryonesource.mil or 1-800-342-9647. There is also TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, at 1-800-959-8277 or taps.org. Of course, there is the Veterans Administration for VA resources, and they do have a VA caregiver support line. You may contact 855-260-3274, and or you can go to mentalhealth.va.gov/suicide_prevention to learn more. And of course, you can check out websites that have also been offered by AFSP's list of resources. There is warriorcare.dodlive.mil, and that is the Office of the Warrior Care Policies. And of course, again, I already gave the Psychological Health Center of Excellence at pdhealth.mil/resources/call centers, which also provides another list of resources which veterans can contact. But lastly, but not least, there is also the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Association at 1-800-662-HELP or 4357 if you know someone who is suffering from a substance abuse disorder. Whether or not they are a veteran, both may contact the SAMHSA hotline, and they will also be able to provide crisis care if you are a caregiver looking for help and resources and a point in the right direction. So I just want to stress, not only do our veterans need assistance and or someone suffering from a mental health crisis, a substance use disorder, those who are in need of care are often supported by caregivers. And those caregivers must also have support, must also have resources that empower them to be able to encourage the person that is needing support to continue seeking out that kind of help. So caregivers are also affected, and I wanted to make a special mention for that. I may do a future episode just for caregivers, but we just want to understand that mental health and suicide, it affects not just the person who is suffering, but it affects the family and the friends that are around them. So we are never truly alone when we are going through things like this. We may seem and feel like we are the only ones experiencing this, that no one else understands, but we do need to remember that there are people out there that care. And if you are one of those people, I want to thank you today. I want to thank you for caring for those who may not be able to have their own voice, who may not even realize that they're experiencing these symptoms. So I hope that each and every one of us, no matter what our position is, that we're able to have a support group, that we're able to break the stigma that surrounds all of this, and that we're able to continue openly giving each other the support that we need so that we can help continue in this fight to prevent and to stop suicide. And it's not always easy to share, guys, but because I was given that opportunity, I always want to offer to anybody out there who has a story that they would like to tell. Together we can be a voice. But I also have that special announcement from the beginning that I want to follow up on. The first opportunity I had to share about suicide has never been broadcast or shared anywhere to my knowledge. And I have an audio clip that I'm going to share with you in a few moments from the Greater Kansas AFSP Out of the Darkness Walk, October 7th, 2023, which is also my daughter's birthday, and the first birthday that we spent without her. But from what I understood, the audio was supposed to be part of an AFSP project, possibly. However, sadly, we did experience the early death of our chapter director, Barb's passing, and Jason Nivens from 98.9, previously with 98.9 The Rock here in Kansas City. Jason returned this audio to me recently. So Jason, I want to give you a big thank you for this, brother. You gave me the first opportunity to talk, and getting that audio back to me has reminded me of why I'm doing this again, why I'm here, why you're hearing me come through this podcast. So I'm just going to share with you quickly, you guys. I went to the Out of the Darkness walk by myself. My husband was working. No one else was able to make it with me. But I knew that I wouldn't be alone. I was surrounded by survivors. And if you haven't been to one of the Out of the Darkness events yet, guys, I suggest you attend it when and where if you can. There are vendor booths, lots of mental health support information. And again, here in Kansas City, 98.9 The Rock attended with their host, Jason Nivens. And again, Jason's moved on from the radio station since then, but he is still a supporter of AFSP, and he is still a survivor who has also lost his brother by suicide. So because Jason gave me, again, this opportunity to tell my story, to tell my daughter's story, to tell why I was there and why I was walking. So again, before I play this clip, I just want to say thank you. Thank you in honor of Barb's memory. Thank you to Jason in honor of your brother's memory. Thank you to AFSP and all those who make the Out of the Darkness walks possible. And for everyone that came together to make this moment possible. It's because of moments like this that I want to help share the story of others and to help them find their voice, to help you find your voice if you're out there. I would like to help you be a voice because someone gave me a voice. And let's listen.
You don't need to tell me your last name, but at least, tell me your first name and why you're walking today.
My name's Brandy, and I'm walking for my daughter, Jaslyn, and also for my mother, Joyce.
Okay.
So I have a dual reason for walking.
How long ago did you lose your daughter?
It's been about 6 months ago, March 25th.
Wow, so
it's very fresh.
Very fresh.
Yes.
And then how, I lost my brother 6 years ago, and I know people mean well when they say, well, how you doing? How you doing?
They don't always want us to answer that honestly.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
And sometimes I don't even think that we know how to answer that.
Yeah.
But we find support through others, and we continue to live and to love the ones that we do still have.
Yeah.
And that's what's most important. But also being able to remember the good times.
Yeah.
And still finding a way to have joy after sorrow.
Yeah.
And purpose in the pain.
Yeah. Wow, purpose in the pain. That's I haven't heard that one yet, but that really cuts. That hits deep.
They say God gives us beauty for ashes. I think that he also helps us find the purpose.
Okay.
And even Jesus cried when he knew Lazarus was dead and he was going to raise him anyway.
Yeah.
So that just shows us it's okay to be sad during the sad parts.
Yeah. What do you remember most about your daughter?
She was such a free spirit. Everything that I never thought I would be. And I saw so much of myself and her dad in her. But her brother said she had her own style.
Mm-hmm.
And she definitely did.
Yeah.
She was coolest kid you'd ever meet and a wonderful young woman when she was grown.
And you mentioned you lost your mom as well.
Yeah, my mom passed away before I could remember her.
Okay.
Christmas Eve of 1984.
Okay.
I was blessed with a set of adoptive parents who raised me right.
Yeah.
But I also still try to honor and remember my birth mother as well, because I'm thankful for the life she gave me.
Yeah, of course. And so what would you tell a young person today struggling as a suicide survivor?
To talk to somebody, not to hold it all in. Even if you're just sending out your safety word, if you tell them Yu-Gi-Oh! Or I need help, or I don't feel good, or I don't feel right. But if they keep it in themselves, nobody will know to be able to help. And speaking out is probably the best thing that they could do, no matter how they communicate. It's important that they say something to somebody.
Yeah.
Because they just don't know how many people really do care about them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's easy for people to forget that talking is the best way to help get those things out and to start healing and working towards better mental health after the fact.
I appreciate you coming over here and talking today. I'm sorry that we're meeting under these circumstances.
I appreciate you having us, and thank you guys for serving Kansas City for so long.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's only about 3 minutes long, guys. And thank you for listening. But those few minutes seemed a lot longer in person. And sometimes it's not easy to find my voice. It's not easy to find our voice. You know, sometimes we may not know what to say, and that's okay too. But the point is that no matter how long it took us or how long it takes us to develop our voice, we have to keep trying. We have to keep talking. We have to keep talking to one another. We have to keep talking about these things. We have to keep talking about how to prevent suicide, how to educate and support one another, how to break down the walls of stigma through our words and through our actions. If I had decided not to go that day because I was by myself, this podcast might not exist. So again, I hope this encourages everyone who's listening out there not to give up. I hope you know that we need you to stay. We need you to be here to help us in the fight to prevent and stop suicide. Your voice matters. Your life matters. And if you're out there and you're struggling, please reach out to someone. Please. I mean, reach out to me if you don't have anybody else, or even if you do. I have time to listen. I have plenty of time to talk. And please, just let others know that you're also willing to listen. If you're out there and you're willing to talk, or if you know someone who's in crisis, or you suspect that they may be in crisis, reach out to them. Reach out to one of the many resources for crisis care. Be sure to watch for the warning signals for mental health. Watch for the warning signals for suicide. But remember, the most important thing we can do is to leave the light on for our veterans and for others by talking about suicide, by having open conversations, by no longer shaming or shying away from something that we don't understand, because we have to seek to understand it in order to know where to help and where to give support and what to do if a crisis does occur. And of course, guys, you know, remember that you can reach out to the Crisis Lifeline, the National Suicide Hotline. If you don't know what to do in a crisis, they will give you crisis care. They will walk you through what to do. So, of course, that 988 Crisis Lifeline, the 1-800-273-8255 National Suicide Hotline. Again, you press 1 for military or veteran assistance, but there is, again, that SAMHSA phone number, the 800-662-4357, and the many others I mentioned before. Just please reach out to one of them. If you don't reach out to a family member or to a friend, even to a coworker, a boss, a pastor, you know, there are many ways to reach out for help. So don't hesitate. Please send out that SOS and let someone know today if you need support or you need to talk. And I know sometimes it's hard to believe that a stranger, someone you've never met, I know it's hard to believe that they could care about you, but it's been placed on my heart. And I hope it's been placed on yours too, to let someone know that we are not alone. We are not alone in this fight. And it is a fight. But I really, really appreciate everybody who listens in. Because as I've said before, it takes a lot of courage to step out this way. So I hope you'll keep listening next time as we begin our second season. And don't forget that if you have a story to tell, I definitely want to include you in this next season. So let me know and we can schedule a time to talk. I'm also open to any ideas or recommendations. There are many different social, cultural factors that contribute to suicide that we will get into a little deeper in the coming episodes and seasons. But I don't want to leave anybody out, so please feel free to let me know if there is something you would like me to include in this podcast. Maybe you could share something educational with me as well. Don't ever be afraid to learn new things, you guys. But again, I have to thank you for listening, as always, for sharing and for supporting this podcast. And by doing so, I pray that we have made a difference. And I know that it makes a difference to me to have your support. So I hope it makes a difference to anybody out there who's listening to know that I support you as well. And I hope to continue making a difference in breaking the stigma that surrounds suicide by openly speaking and talking about it. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I can't say this enough. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And don't forget to take care of yourself and others around you. Don't forget to talk to someone if you're in crisis. Don't forget to reach out, you guys. But of course, and as always, guys, until next time, whenever and wherever, God bless.